The retargeting audiences within your Facebook ads are likely to drive the best return out of all of the audiences within your campaign. However, which audiences do you retarget within your Facebook ads? Which audiences do you include? And how has that changed post iOS 14? It's because the audiences that I would suggest pre-iOS 14 are very different to the audiences that I would suggest today. So that is what I'm going to cover in this video. Okay, so to demonstrate the best practice around retargeting, I'd like to share my screen here and demonstrate those best practices and which audiences you should target and the correct campaign structure for that. So if you're an e-commerce store, typically you would have a sales campaign set up. So as you can see, this example sales campaign here. So if we were to click into this campaign, first of all, let's go into the retargeting ad set there. Okay, and now we'll scroll down to where you can create the custom audiences, which is where you would be creating the retargeting audiences. Now, if you click on create new and then create a custom audience, which is how you'd be creating that retargeting audience, we have many different options at the moment. Now, as I said at the start of this video, the retargeting audiences are likely to be the most effective audience for you to target within your campaigns. Really, it simply comes down to how they're very familiar with the content. They perhaps already know, like, and trust you. And so I'm certainly a big fan of having these retargeting audiences as large as possible and put them over the time frame that is as large as possible and as large as Facebook or Meta will allow. So when going into the website section, which is the first retargeting audience that I would recommend, certainly look, this is where you can retarget all the people who have engaged with your website after visiting. This is of course a demonstration ad account, so we do not actually have a pixel set up at the moment, but assuming that you do have a pixel set up, I would recommend that you keep the potential audience size within your website visitors as large as possible. I quite often see other advertisers recommend to target only the last 7 days or 28 days, but really you can target up to 180 days. If you look at the retention here, you can see you've got a maximum time of 180 days. And that is extremely valuable people who have engaged with your website and perhaps even shown buying intent, and so could potentially then go on to purchase. So I would highly recommend that you change that retention to 180 days, as it's very valuable. Keep that audience as large as possible, and you can simply call it all website visitors 180 days and target that audience. An advantage of this is that the audience will continue to change over time as new people visit your website. Now, I know an objection to this approach is that, of course, the people who have most recently visited your website in the last 3 days, 1 day, or 7 days, for example, should be prioritized, and they're most warm and high quality people to target, so you should only target those people. That's a valid point, but Facebook do know the people who are most likely to purchase. They know the people who have most recently visited the website. So even if you were to have this set up and target people in the last 180 days, Facebook will still prioritize your ads to the people who've interacted with your website in the last few days or so, and then it'll gradually show the people who visited your website in the last 2 days, 7 days, 30 days, and then work your way through the ad budget to 180 days, which is the maximum. So it's a very efficient and certainly optimal way to have 180 days in that retention there, as it's certainly very valuable. Now, the second audience I would recommend is a custom list, which you can see here, and it's a second option within your sources. Now, there's 2 customer lists that I'd recommend you upload. Well, one would be obviously the customer list, so everybody who's passed with their money paid you within your store, and this would ideally have as much information within that list as possible, so name, email addresses, phone numbers, personal address, as much information as possible, as long of as a time frame that you have as possible. So of course, on the website side of things, you're limited to 180 days, but this isn't the case with your customer list. So you can simply upload a CSV file of as much data points as you have, if possible, since when you started your business. So you could have many years worth potentially of customers on that customer list. Then now you'd upload that CSV file to Facebook, and it would look at the associating name, email address, and phone number of that Facebook profile that is attached to that name, email address, and phone number, and then Facebook will target those people. Now the match rate of that might not be perfect, so it's typically around 50%. So if, for example, you upload a customer list of 10,000 people, Facebook might only be able to find 5,000 Facebook profiles, that 5,000 previous customers that they'd be able to target, but still highly worth doing to have as much information as possible over a long enough time frame as possible. It's extremely valuable. Now also there is an email list, so it doesn't potentially have to be people who have purchased from you in the past. It could be people who are simply subscribed to your newsletter. And I would recommend you setting up that as well. And again, there'll be as much information as possible over long enough as long time frame as possible. That is very key. Now, some of you might be thinking, why would you want to be targeting previous customers? They, of course, already purchased from you. Now, a key point there is that the previous customers that you'd be targeting as a proportion of the overall ad spend and the overall percentage of people that you would be targeting, it could be it's certainly a negligible percentage of your ad spend that you'd be targeting. That is the percentage of your customers out of the proportion of the potential new people that you'd be targeting. That could be like 0.001%, for example. It's negligible. But what is very valuable is that if you're offering great products to your audience, your previous customers will see the ads, and then typically the best performing ads that we've seen from our own ad agency have previous customers commenting on those ads saying, here's a photo of the product, it was brilliant, it's great service, I highly recommend them. That's so valuable, extremely valuable, to have this unbiased people going out of their way to put positive social proof onto the ads, and then for you to promote that. It's extremely valuable, which is why I don't recommend that you exclude your previous customers. It's very important to include those. And you could also have other products in your store which those customers may also be able to purchase as well. A lot of products do lend themselves to a high customer retention rate, so you could be purchasing once every 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And so certainly recommends to target all customer lists and all email lists. Those two audiences there were the two audiences I typically recommend for you to target pre-iOS 14. But now post-iOS 14, there's certain limitations on for the website, for the people visiting your website. If people have opted out of iOS 14 tracking, then they may not be able to be retargeted through the Facebook ads. So that has limited retargeting audiences on the website side of things. However, this post iOS 14, I'd recommend now to include retargeting audiences for the meta sources that you see here within this category. Okay, now why would I recommend to do the meta sources? Because it's sources that are all on Facebook, all on Meta. There's no drop off. There's no, even the people that have opted out of iOS 14, they're still going to be caught in the people who are on the meta sources, people who have engaged with your videos or Instagram account or Facebook page, for example. They're still going to be included within those audiences. And so this is why I would suggest that you include meta sources there. So the first source I'd like to go through is video. Now, if you click on video here, you can look at the different level of engagement. So what percentage of your video would you want people to have engaged with? Now, typically, unless it's less than perhaps 5-10 second videos on average, I would recommend to have people who can watch at least 25% of your videos, and then you can go in and choose your videos there. I'd recommend to choose as many as possible over the last, say, 2 to 3 months, so that there'll be a very warm audience there for you to target. And again, have the retention as large as possible. It's interesting that the default is 365 days there. So it's Facebook helping you out there as that is the maximum. So that is an audience I would recommend for you to have as well. Now, the next meta source that I recommend you to have is two very similar audiences, and that's for the Instagram account and Facebook page. That would be people who have engaged with your Facebook page in the last 365 days. So people who have liked, commented, shared your posts, and that would be targeting people who have done that on either Facebook or Instagram. And that is very key there, and is the default option when you go into those two settings for Instagram and Facebook. Now, the final option I'd recommend you to set up is a lead form. Now, this may not be particularly relevant for e-commerce stores, as typically the large majority of campaigns are sales focused, driving purchases and conversions to the website, but I have worked with some stores which, for example, run lead form ads to get more newsletter subscribers to their store. Similarly with the other audiences, I'd recommend that you target the people who have opened any lead form and that's over a time frame that is as long as possible. And so the maximum time frame for lead forms is 90 days. Okay, so I hope you found that valuable regarding the best practices post iOS 14 to carry out the retargeting audiences within your campaigns. As I say, the retargeting audiences are likely to be responsible for the most significant return on ad spend within your campaigns. So it's extremely important that you have these audiences as large as possible to get the most benefit as possible for those retargeting audiences. Now, before we go, I'd like to tell you about one small thing that will help you get a much better results through your paid advertising campaigns. Now, currently, as an agency, we're offering free digital marketing strategy sessions, where these sessions are held over the phone. And during these sessions, we analyze your business and develop a winning digital marketing strategy that is highly likely to deliver you better results and return and sales online. Now, there should be a link near this video or in my bio regarding this offer, this digital marketing strategy session. Of course, we won't have this offer up forever. So if you don't want to miss out, I encourage you to book a session straight away. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.